Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition on the PC is a remake of the 1998 RPG classic. The Enhanced Edition was developed by Overhaul Games / Beamdog and published by Atari, released on Windows on November 28, 2012. Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition combines the original Baldur's Gate with the Tales of the Sword Coast expansion, while adding in some new areas, items, gameplay tweaks, characters, and so forth. Coupled with Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition are the Siege of Dragonspear expansion and the Black Pits Arena adventure, which I will not be covering in this review. I'm not going to compare the editions of Baldur's Gate, as I have not played the vanilla Baldur's Gate, rather I'm going to be focusing solely on the Enhanced Edition. Let me first start by saying that I am a Baldur's Gate noob. I never played this series growing up, nor have I participated in anything Dungeons & Dragons related, so I won't pretend like I'm an expert on the ins and outs here, but in saying that, I will try my best. Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition follows the rule set of the 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. After creating your character with a fairly in-depth character creation system, where you can pick your race, class, choose your proficiencies, roll your stats, and so forth, you start out in the town of Candlekeep. P.S. Do not create your entire party. Grab NPCs throughout the game for some decent banter, story progression, and missions. Just some advice. Anyway, you are the orphaned ward of the mage Gorion. You are essentially told to leave Candlekeep ASAP with little to no explanation. When you leave, your party is then confronted by a band of no-good ambushers, which includes a mysterious armored figure. Gorion heroically sacrifices himself to keep you alive, which is a recurring theme especially early in Baldur's Gate. Everybody seemingly wants to see you dead. From there, really the world is your oyster. Baldur's Gate is a fairly large open world game and you could choose to forge your path however you'd like, whether it be as a goody two-shoes, an evil merciless brute, or somewhere in between. So I won't go on any further regarding the story, it's something that you should really just experience for yourself. Now that the game has really started, this is where things can go straight up for you or down into the shitter. Since Baldur's Gate is fairly open world, it's very easy to veer off track, and obviously at times this is encouraged, but at low levels you can get absolutely manhandled. It's important to figure out the style that you want to play and stick to it. My first playthrough of Baldur's Gate lasted about 10 hours before I realized I had no idea what I was doing. I was dying left and right, and I had to restart. Upon my restart, I made sure that I had lots of ranged attackers, as melee at low levels is asking to get chunked into smithereens by your opposition. Much like the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons rule set would suggest, this is not an easy game for a newcomer to understand. The magic system is in-depth. Should you dual class when you have the opportunity? What should you be putting your proficiencies in? There's just so many different ways to play and questions to be asked, so don't be afraid to use an online guide for your first playthrough, unless you truly love that trial and error of constant saving and reloading, which I won't judge either way. To be concise, I'll just say this. Your character progression and combat are the two most intriguing aspects of Baldur's Gate. A 1,000-foot overview of the combat is as follows. You operate with a system of hitting and missing based upon dice rolls. Other than the damage output, 3 of the main components in combat are Armor Class, where the lower number is better, THAC0, to hit Armor Class 0, where yet again a lower number is better, and Saving Throws, which is the ability to avoid and or resist special types of attacks such as poison, magic, etc. I could go on and on about the combat system, but again, I'm not an expert here, so generally I adhere to the lower number is better for most important categories train of thought. From my experience, I found combat to be more engaging with party AI turned off, and having an auto pause when the enemy first appears. During your combat, since you attack in turns with rolls, it is encouraged to constantly pause and unpause in order to plot your next strategic move. Again, a rule of thumb that I find helps beginners is ranged attacks, whether it be from bows, slings, darts, magic, or what have you, until you get to a higher level where you could actually start tanking with consistency, assuming you have the party members equipped to do so. Another allure to Baldur's Gate are the difficulty settings. If you are truly overwhelmed, there is a story mode, which is basically a mode that you can't lose in, some modes such as normal and core rules, which land somewhere in between, then a few higher difficulty settings which in a sense artificially increase the difficulty with enemy damage output, annoyances such as failing to write magic scrolls for use, and lower hit points. For my first playthrough, I used normal mode, and my current playthrough I'm playing on hard, which is just below insane and the legacy of bald difficulties. I'll say it right now, this game gripped me. Even more so after my first playthrough, which lasted roughly 50 hours. I was ready to jump right back in with a new playstyle and alignment. In saying that, this game is not perfect, and it does show its age at times. My biggest gripes of Baldur's Gate are things such as inventory management. Even with the addition of potion and gem bags, it can get awfully cumbersome, especially if your main hero has a low equipment load and gets encumbered rather easily while picking up loot. At times this game can be fairly confusing and unforgiving, especially at lower levels like I had mentioned previously. Thus, a lot of new players can hit this wall, give up, and never come back, which is a shame. Another thing that I encountered on my playthrough was general fatigue. I had done so many side quests leading up to the city of Baldur's Gate that by the time I got there, I was honestly just wanting to get to the end of the game. Thus, I missed out on lots of extra content. Believe it or not, I actually missed the entire Tales of the Sword Coast expansion stuff, like Durlag's Tower, Olgoth's Beard, which is the main reason why I'm replaying this game right now. And one mechanical issue that I encountered quite a few times was the pain of trying to navigate a party of 5 or 6 members through tight quarters. The path tracking at times could be absolutely dreadful. I can go on and on about this, but in the spirit of my shorter review style, I have to stop here. This was a very difficult game for me to review because it's so in-depth and my knowledge in general on it is lacking, but I could sum it up with this. Baldur's Gate is a masterpiece. It's a flawed masterpiece. It's a masterpiece with a learning curve. But those that give it a chance, eventually understanding more day by day, the more it grows on you. At times it shows its age and at times it's clunky, but I'd be damned if I didn't want to traverse a Sword Coast on a Saturday morning. I give Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition a solid 8 out of 10. I highly recommend it for fans of RPGs or Dungeons & Dragons. My preferred style to play is on PC due to the ease of use and modding, however the Switch port is actually pretty slick, especially with the portability option. If you're behind the times like me, give this one a go now. If you've played it already, play it again.